Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order. This is our Monday, August 8th, 2022 meeting. And if we'd all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And at this point in time, I'd like to introduce the members of the commission that are here this evening. To my immediate right is Commission Member James Fitzsimmons. Next to Jim is Jeff Cohan, also a commission member. To the far right is Jamie Hine, who's an alternate on the commission. To my immediate left is J.P. Vanoint, our vice chairperson. And next to J.P. is Dave Parent, who's also an alternate on the commission. At the lower table is Cheryl Ann Tubby, who is our recording secretary. Next to Cheryl Ann is Kevin Pagini, who's the town planner. I'm Jim Seichter. I'm the chairperson of the commission. And our next order of business is to consider the approval of our minutes of our July 11, 2022 meeting. Any commission members with any additions, corrections, adjustments to the meetings? If none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the Monday, July 11th, 2022 Wallingford Planning and Zoning Commission minutes.
We have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. All in favor, begin voting. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. And as Mr. Allenson is not here this evening, I'll ask Mr. Parent if he would sit in for Mr. Allenson for our items on the agenda. And it brings us to our first item on the agenda, which is new business. It's a site plan for the police department at 100 Barnes Road. If the applicant and or its representatives please come forward to begin their presentation. And while they're doing that, Mr. Parent, if you would please note all correspondence for the record.
Have in the department referral, a notice of proposed development. It's having difficulty understanding who signed it.
I believe that's from our deputy fire marshal.
Oh, Deputy, this is from Brian Schlock.
He didn't have good penmanship.
Okay. Anyhow, our Deputy Fire Marshal. See a letter from Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, to Jakunski Holmes Associates regarding, comments regarding his application plan. This is received July 22nd, 2022. Item 21522-C, interoffice memorandum dated, received July 29th, 2002 from Scott Shipman, town junior engineer, Department of Public Utilities. Memorandum from Aaron O'Hare, dated July 29th, 2020. That's item 21522D. And item 21522E, received August 4th, 2022, from Jakunski Holmes Architects LLC to Kevin J. Pagini. That's all. That's all. Unless there's something new in this pile, that's all I have.
I think that's all there is. Thank you, Mr. Parent. If the applicant and or its representative please introduce themselves and begin your presentation.
Thank you very much. I'm Brian Humes. I represent Jakunski Humes Architects. We're out of Berlin, Connecticut. We've been hired by the town of Wallingford to undertake the project as far as design and permitting. The project is labeled 215-22, additions and renovations to 100 Barnes Road in Wallingford. While that's the title on the drawings, the project is actually intended to be the new headquarters for the Wallingford Police Department and headquarters. For this project, we have been working with the Town Building Committee. Allison Kapuscinski is chair, and also the town engineer, acting as chair of the building committee. I do have members to my left of the building committee that are here present tonight. We've also been working with police staff through Chief Ventura and Deputy Chief DeMeo on the needs of the facility. The town just recently hired a construction manager, Downs Construction out of New Britain, to act as construction manager for the project. I have at the table with me tonight Christopher Giuliano from Giuliano Associates, acting as civil engineers, site planners for the project. So what we have for your consideration this evening is the renovation in addition to 100 Barnes Road. I don't have any drawings on boards tonight to present because the unique aspect of this is it is a police facility. The drawings that have been submitted to the commission for their review, the police department, the building committee is requesting that those copies be considered confidential. We would, just because of the safety and security of the proposed development, the proposed site, and specifically floor plans, it was a request that they not be presented publicly. They're there for your review, but we're not presenting those in any public forum.
So if I could just interrupt you for a second. Mr. Pagini, how does that impact FOI?
I was not aware of that stipulation. Allison and I, had multiple dialogues, and I was not aware of that, so I'm not exactly sure how it impacts FOI at this point. She had told me today they were going to make some kind of presentation regarding the facility, but this is news to me, I guess you can say. Again, I guess if it is confidential for safety purposes, then I guess if the public has questions, they can maybe be addressed through the town somehow.
I guess if you're going to take that approach, I certainly would have requested that you would have run this certainly by our corporate counsel. It's a concern for me, but I'm not sure how other commission members feel. I understand the sensitive nature about that, believe me. I just want to make sure that when simply we conduct this, we're following, freedom of information and that
And
people have that ability.
we intend that you do follow that freedom of information. We're just requesting that if there's not a need to present the plans, that we don't. We can describe the development tonight. I want to go through what's being proposed. That's not confidential. The development is not confidential. The project is not confidential. But as you can see from the plans do not have any room names on them. So if you're asking questions about the function of the department, I can answer those in general, but we're not labeling those plans with rooms. So we have taken some steps to try to make this as confidential as possible.
Sure, and I appreciate it. I guess I have one more question just for our town planner. If a member of the public wanted to come in and look at these plans, like they certainly have the ability to look at plans from any, on any other application, would a member of the public be able to do that? I mean,
would say that-
Up to this point, I believe they were. I wasn't given any instructions to the contrary, so I'm not sure if anyone has come in and looked at it, but they may have. I generally, keep it open, but
the bottom line is if a member of the public wanted to come in or in the future would want to come in to look at these plans, at this point in time, it's your understanding that they would be able to do that. Is that correct?
yes, but now I'm getting new information, so I may have to check.
No, I don't understand. What I'm saying is, as of now, that is your understanding,
Yes.
correct? And that's something that I guess I would advise that you perhaps talk with our corporate counsel about, or so to get a better understanding. Again, sir, I don't mean to be difficult. I just want to make sure that, we comply with, freedom of information, and we do that. I don't know if there's any other commission members. I know we have one or two attorneys here. Not that I'm looking for a long comment, but I guess I would just ask if any commission members just have any comments. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would rather be safe than sorry. even a presentation at this point, if we're going to start asking questions or we're going to have questions based upon a presentation given tonight, I would just feel more comfortable having some opinion from corporate counsel. And just so that we're clear, would your position be that if a member of the public did come into the planning department to take a look at the plans, would you have an objection to that going forward?
Well, I'm speaking on behalf of my client, and I don't think my client would have an objection to that at all. We understand the land use permitting requirements. We're fulfilling those requirements, and we're presenting plans to the commission for your review and comment. I'm prepared to present all of the aspects of the project tonight in a public forum. So we're very comfortable talking about the project, but we do have to recognize some of the sensitive nature of this specific improvement that's being made for the safety of the department. This is not an unusual, we've done a lot of police facilities throughout
Oh,
the
I'm
state.
sure, I'm sure you have,
It's
sir.
not an unusual request that's being made to commissions. Just understand the documents that you have for the purposes of approving this through a commission. So if you could respect that and not disseminate those further or offer them out for public, it's appreciated.
But that's where.
They're public
Again,
documents.
I don't, yeah, I
They're
don't,
public
I don't mean to
documents.
kind of get into a circular argument, but if.
They're public
if the
documents.
Sir, I'm speaking, just, if you, just give me a moment, please. It just seems to be a little bit, though, of a circular argument that members of the public or anyone could come in and look at the plans in the planning office. So they're available to the public, but this evening, if members of the public wanted to be aware of the plans, then you're saying I don't want them to be aware of it. Or you'd rather that they're not as far as the specific plans.
I didn't know if this was going to be, the drawings are going to be put up for public presentation in a public forum.
That's the way we present, all the plans are generally presented when they come before the commission.
Are they going to be on the screen for public observation?
The way the town engineer, conveyed it to me was that it would just be a general presentation as everybody else does to planning and zoning. So this is completely new to me that you weren't going to do a presentation, I guess, so.
No, I am going to do a presentation, just not
just
involving
without-
not involving the drawings.
I guess other commission members would like to make a comment. Certainly, I don't want to drive the conversation. Yes, Mr. Parent.
Not from a legal view, but I'm, as a retired business manager, New Haven Community Correctional Center, I see terms and phrases that's, normal in prison or construction, and I'm a little bit cautious. I mean, we had a somewhat similar situation where we're going to do something, and we said, maybe we're better off with an attorney, with a corporation counsel opinion. And, we got it, and and once we got that, we were able to move right along. But here, let me see, we FOI, are we giving away information that could be potentially dangerous to people working in the police station? I would really like to err on the side of caution and say, maybe we shouldn't be doing this unless we've had some sort of direction from Ms. Small, our corporate counsel.
I want to speak for other members of the commission, but people don't agree with me, certainly shake your head. But I think that would be my, my position on this. I think that at this point in time, you're hesitant because you want to keep certain things confidential in one forum, but not confidential in another, which, again, somewhat confuses me. But that's easily done. I would look to say if we would just continue this to our September meeting, and we'll get an opinion from our our corporate counsel if this should be held in private or not private or what.
We do have
Sorry. I have a message from the chairperson. Just hang on a second.
Well, I do have plans at 8.5 by 11. I have the plans in front of me that you have.
Yeah, if you get a little closer to the microphone.
I do have the plans and that you have in front of you. How you'd want me to present these?
Well, absolutely, we have a big board right up there. And I tell you what you can do, my plans are bigger than yours, so
Yeah, they are.
you can,
Because I was
use these.
I was prepared to discuss what was on the plans.
No, I
Talk
understand
about what's
that.
on the plans.
No, I understand that. And again, I think Mr. Giuliano knows how these presentations go, so I'm sure he could perhaps help you with putting the plans up and what have you. And again, I will let you take those. You bet. Yeah.
So is it? So is it acceptable that I can continue? Oh, absolutely. Okay,
Yes, absolutely.
I'll continue on with the presentation. The project overview. The property at 100 Barnes Road has been purchased by the town of Wallingford for the purposes of this headquarters. We are taking the existing building at 41,066 square feet, and we're adding 2,918 square feet of new construction for a total of 43,984 square feet. The main building, the south elevation faces Barnes Road, so the way the plan is oriented, that south is to the right, east is to the top, north is to the left, and west is to the bottom of the sheet. The additions for the police headquarters at 2,918 square feet are two additions, one on the south for an identifiable new public entry, and then one to the north for a new sally port. The sally port description, a sally port, if you're not familiar with a sally port, it's a secure garage for the transport of detainees. It gives the police department the ability to go into the facility, close garage doors, and then safely transport the prisoners or detainees into an area for processing. So that's the definition of a sally port. The public entry that is proposed for the south side is going to pay respects to the former Armory building on Main Street. So we have two towers that mimic the Armory structure on Main Street with an identifiable entry for the public and a canopy for covering at the front door. We've also put lettering on the building to identify that as its main entrance. There are some other site development that is going on the proposed site to the east, and it's two buildings that are being proposed. One is a firearms training center, and the second is a traffic maintenance and storage outbuilding. The firearms training center is a one-story, 4,124 square foot training center. The highest point is 14 feet in height, but it's also constructed into an existing sloped area of the site. So the back side of the building is buried into the berm of the existing topography. The firearms training range and training center will be both a live fire range and a simulated training area for firearms use and firearms proficiency for the department. We are intending to put some mechanical units on the roof, and the acoustical control will be such that we will not exceed any decibel levels at perimeters. The way it is being constructed, as I said, will be constructed into the existing slope. So really only 3 sides will be bermed into the slope. The west elevation is a masonry with drive-it face that is going to be facing the parking lot. The second outbuilding, also to the eastern side of the site, is a traffic maintenance and storage outbuilding. It's also being proposed as a 1-story, 5,602 square foot building, pre-engineered metal in construction. The use of that building would be to support the traffic maintenance shop and vehicle storage for traffic maintenance. There are additional bays for that area to also utilize as storage bays for police departments, specialty vehicles, and specialty equipment. That also will be constructed into the slope, so it would minimize the height on the 3 sides of the building. And as I said, 27 feet is the highest point at the west elevation. That's the exposed face. That would be a single slope roof, metal paneled, all of the water shedding to the east or to the rear of the building. Another development which is being proposed on this site is a carport canopy structure. Carport canopies are becoming more and more requested and accepted as part of the needs of a police facility, not just to cover the fleet vehicles for wintertime snow and ice, but as we're undergoing this heat wave, carport canopies are also advantageous in summertime to reduce cabin temperatures within the vehicles, so you are not compromising electronics within the vehicles. So the police department are requesting covering for 30 fleet vehicles, and that would be just outside the staff entry. As you exit the building to the east, the carport canopy would run along that line of cars.
Sir, if I could just interrupt you for a second, perhaps, Mr. Giuliano, if you could just go up to the, to the maps, and just, as the gentleman is just pointing out these various things, if you could just also, for the benefit of the commission and then other members of the public that may be watching this, that they'll become more familiar.
Okay. For the record, Christopher Giuliano, professional engineer and licensed land surveyor. The canopy in which Mr. Humes is talking about is this row of parking right here along the eastern side of the building. Okay?
Where the charging stations are,
Where the
would
proposed
be
future
proposed.
charging stations will be for when or if
Sure.
our department transfers over to fully electric vehicles. Again, pointing out entrance right here, Sally Port located at the north or rear of the building. Firearms Training Center, this is longer building here along the east side of the parking lot, and the vehicle maintenance and storage is the larger building up towards Barnes Road.
I want to explain a little bit more about the proposed site improvements. There is an increase to the impervious areas because of these outbuildings. It's not so much because of the building or the entrance or the Sally Port. Those are really replacing existing areas of impervious surface. But the impervious and expanded areas because of the outbuildings, and that is being directed into a detention basin, which is being identified on the plan. We did receive approvals from the Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Commission. That's within your application, and that was approved on their July 27th regular meeting. Another aspect of this site, because it is a municipal building, it is a police department, we wanted to make an identifiable entry point for the public to have access to police services or any need to access the police department. Off of Barnes Road, there are currently 2 curb cuts that are coming off of Barnes Road into the property. The 2 curb cuts will remain, but the curb cut to the west will be the public entrance to the facility. To make that location more identifiable, as I said, we're proposing a new entry structure to make it identifiable. We are proposing to relocate the road sign, which is currently between the two curb cuts on the site. So we're proposing to relocate that road sign to the curb cut for public entrance, to make that a more identifiable location for public access. The entrance also will be illuminated with bollard lighting, and the bollard lighting would be adjacent to the drop-off area to make that lit during all times of evening use. We've added a planter to the construction of the new entry location, so we have planting areas, and we also have identified 2 flagpoles, which would be in the area of that new public entrance. So utilizing the same curb cut, we think we've greatly enhanced the entry sequence for the public to identify that as a public access area. We have 5 areas, 5 parking spaces for handicap, and we are providing 2 parking spaces for EV charging for public use. So that would also be on the public access side of the parking lot. In addition to those public amenities, we're also identifying 1 space in the public area for internet exchange. The internet exchange location is being utilized more and more for police facilities where public want to come and exchange any purchases that they've made online in a safe manner. So that's also a location that will be supplemented by camera surveillance and site lighting. So we have an opportunity for safe exchange of products, materials, or also it's been utilized for other areas for safe exchange. A dumpster pad is added for near the existing loading dock for a dumpster location. And also on the public side, we have a fenced enclosure for an emergency generator, a planned communication tower, and also a pad-mounted transformer within a fenced enclosed area. So that describes how the site would be expanded more on the public side for public amenities. We also have the second curb cut coming off of Barnes Road, which would be utilized for staff only and fleet vehicles only. To control the traffic through the eastern curb cut, we are going to be placing access control gates for both entering and exit. Anybody entering the site from that curb cut would need a credential to get through the gate, or there will be an intercom, which you could have direct communications back to dispatch. Upon the exiting from that site, it'll be a free exit loop in the pavement. So all vehicles that are in that area can have free and easy access off the site at any time without the need for a credential. New paving and new striping would occur on all paved areas. New detention basin in that area would be provided for increased runoff. Also, the last piece is a vehicle storage area. It's used for impounded vehicles or any vehicles being held for purposes of evidence. And that vehicle storage area is adjacent to another proposed emergency generator. And we had located 1 generator on the public side within a fenced enclosure. This second generator would be only utilized if the town undergoes the EV charging stations for the fleet vehicles. So once they do, and plans are in place, conduits are in place, if they ever go to needing EV charging for fleet vehicles, that would also need to be backed up for emergency generator power. The police department feels very confident that there's adequate parking here for both their staff needs and their public demand within the facility. The area will be provided with new site lighting, and a photometric plan has been submitted to describe the lighting foot candle levels throughout the site. We are in receipt of the July 21st review comments from the town planner, and we have responded to those comments on an August 3rd correspondence back to the town planner, and those comments have also been incorporated into a resubmission on the drawing set that you have in front of you. So that concludes my presentation of the site.
Good enough, thank you. Before I go to commission members for questions, Mr. Pagini, any comments, questions on the proposed application?
No further comments.
Excuse me, just for a second. Yeah, I think it was on the plan. Just that one there. Yeah. At this point in time, commission members with comments, questions for the applicant. Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I have several questions. First topic is this firing range. I really, is there currently a firing range in the center of town? Or does the Wallingford Police have to go somewhere else to do their firearm training?
There is no firearms training range within their existing facility.
Okay. You know, this is kind of a remote site. You know, it's adjacent to, you know, some neighbors and, you know, shopping plaza. And I'm just really concerned about, you know, having gunfire sounds off the property. Now, you said there was, you know, provisions in place to, you know, minimize the decibels, but, you know, I just really concerned about this aspect and where the range is going to be. You know, what are the hours that, you know, police officers can come in and do their firearm training? Is it anytime they want? You're going to have it, you know, 9 to 5 during the week, weekends, and it sounds like there's going to be a, you know, one of those training things where you have the pop-up, you know, bad guys, and, you know, you go through the maze and things like that. I'm just really concerned about sound coming off that property. And, you know, has there been any measurements on, you know, your building specifications? I know you're building it into the, you know, side of the hill there, which is great, but, you know, still comes out the front. So what kind of, you know, assurances can the public have that, you know, we're not going to be hearing, you know, gunfire? And again, what are the hours? When's it going to be used?
These are all good concerns, and concerns that we can discuss and come to a conclusion with. I'm representing the owner in this application, so for me to set hours of operation, I don't think is appropriate, but I can give you conversations between the committee and the police department that this was going to be utilized for daytime use. The decibel levels at a range, we have experience with doing other municipal ranges for police facilities. Most recently, we brought back to restoration the range that was within the Trumbull Police Department. And the Trumbull Police Department did back up to residential properties just off their property line. And from the building to the property line was only about 20 feet, with residences backing up to that. And through the design, we did satisfy the town of Trumbull with decibel levels at the property line, didn't exceed any noise ordinance concerns. And the neighbors who were first concerned were no longer concerned when it was completed. We have the ability with construction types and to deaden sound from getting inside the building to outside the building. The building is being constructed of masonry. This is all indoor firing and indoor live fire. So the masonry has an ability to dampen the decibels getting from inside the building to outside the building. We are also proposing the roof construction to be precast concrete plank for the same reason, to provide mass. So I'm confident that we will not be exceeding any decibel levels off property for what we're proposing to do at this location with the proximity to the property line. Where we find the decibel level that we need to be concerned with is actually the mechanical units that are at the building to drive the mechanical unit, the mechanical airflow that's required through the firing range. To create a proper operating range, we have to create, in all intents and purposes, a wind tunnel. Because of the lead contamination, and we have to filter that exchange from the exhaust side to the supply side, so there's filter boxes, and we have to really get some high velocity within the space, so lead contamination for the officers is safe, and there's no concerns for that contaminant. It's being filtered. So the mechanical unit needs to be running when the range is in operation. So through the use of lagging on the ductwork, through the use of insulating ductwork, we were able to bring decibel levels of the mechanical units down to a quote unquote normal levels of air conditioning. When we're looking at decibel levels, we're not saying we're not creating any noise, but are we creating a reasonable noise at the property line? Are these within noise ordinances or noise statutes? And we're finding that, yes, we can produce that, but there will be a noise that the mechanical unit is running, just as compressors are running, just as rooftop units are running. You do hear that when those times and that equipment is running. So will we make zero noise? No. There will be mechanical noise that we can design to dampen, but the percussion noise of the firearms within the space, we found that the construction type adequately dampens that for any off-property concerns. So when you said shopping centers or neighbors, we need to be good neighbors to who's abutting us, and we feel that with our experience, we also have acoustical consultants within our contract to assure that we're not exceeding any decibel levels acceptable at the property lines.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. I want to go back to the range again, a little more specific. You know, you mentioned the one in Trumbull that, you know, was 20 feet from the neighbors. And I'm just going to ask this question. What kind of weapons were they using? I mean, is this just firearms, or do you have assault rifle training in there as well, which is quite a bit louder than, you know, your handguns?
The length of this is certification for handguns. It's a 75 feet, 25-yard range for certification of handguns. The backstop is rated for any ballistic level. But the reason that they're requesting this facility is because proficiency in firearms is harder and harder and harder to achieve with the availability of outdoor ranges or indoor ranges in the area, not giving adequate time for the officers to go and have firearms proficiency. Their options are getting less and less. This is not unique to Wallingford. This is happening statewide right now as people are trying to scramble for proper certification time. It also is requiring the police department to go off-site or even out of town to get proper training where they can now do it right at their own facility and have control of the time. So there's a definite stated need that we're trying to satisfy with this facility. And I can only tell you that the police department understand the concerns. The building committee understands the concerns, but there's also a need for proficiency and to make your officers the best trained in firearms.
Yes, that I understand. Again, will there be, you know, assault type rifles, you know, being used at this firing range?
I don't know if can we be definitive?
I'm sorry?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. William Wright, 510 North Main Street, retired from the police department as the chief, also a member of the steering committee. So I'll try to round out Brian's comments. So if you've been following along the last several years, range space is getting incredibly difficult to find. If you've been really following it, you know that the state police, who shoot primarily in Simsbury, need to get out of that range. It floods when it rains really hard. It's not an ideal location. And where the police department can't get range space now at the Academy in Meriden, if they close that Simsbury range, you know where those 1,200 troopers are going to have to shoot, right? So space and time becomes an issue. To Mr. Hume's point, Firearms Proficiency currently requires that police officers qualify twice a year on paper, and then you get 3 or 4 hours of time, and then you have to move out because some other department needs the space. So in order to allow for more time, the police department has rented range space where they can find it. Some ranges now require specific ammunition to use to shoot at their range, which is very expensive, and it still doesn't solve the problem of recognizing that there are police officers who have difficulty with their firearm. It's not inherent just to Wallingford, it's inherent to any police department. This range will give the opportunity for police officers, at the discretion of the administration, to get into that confined space and improve their efficiency. More than, and inclusive of the firearms piece of it, this Firearms Training Center also has the ability for tactical movement, as you said, Mr. Cohen, right, to separate the space into different rooms, potentially, and allow for more tactical movement as a group or singularly as necessary. I cannot speak definitively to whether or not the high-powered weaponry and the rifles could be used in this range. I really doubt it with my experience with high-powered weaponry, but I can't speak definitively to that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sir.
Thank you, Chief. Thanks for your comments, which begs one other question on the firing range. You know, will this be exclusively for Wallingford? You know, as the chief indicated, you know, it's tough to find ranges. Will other towns come in and use this?
That's a decision for the town.
So that is a possibility. So it could be pretty busy on the range.
I do know typically the police department's use of the range is, over the life of the range, is low use. The police department would not be out there every day utilizing this range.
Well,
So
if
there is
other
time.
towns came in, I mean,
There
it's
is
just,
time, and I don't have any input on that, whether the town elects to utilize that or not is still a town decision.
okay, thank you. I will move on to a different topic. I think I'm set with the firing range. Thank you for those comments. And again, I'm not really sure how, you know, the overall police department works, quite honestly. But one of the questions when I, you know, saw the plans for this was, you know, the location on Barnes Road. And, you know, there's a lot of workers who, you know, come work in Barnes Park, and they exit around 4 o'clock, 4 p.m., 5 p.m., and Barnes Road is really tied up for, I don't know, 45 minutes, half hour while, you know, the people are exiting. Now, you know, you mentioned 2 curb cuts, one for the public and one with the gate access. And again, not really knowing how, you know, the police department actually works. I don't, you know, as I talk, just correct me where I misspeak here. Will that, and of course the police can use their sirens to get out and, move. But normally I think most of the responses to issues will be people already out on the street. But my question is, does, that traffic, in the morning, in the afternoon, present any type of problem where, you'd have to make, a quick exit from Barnes Road?
It's a common question. So I'm glad you brought it up. Give me a chance to explain a little bit how they do operate. Police facilities is unlike an emergency response such as a fire station. With a fire station, if there's a call, the sirens go off and everything leaves from that location and goes to the emergency. Police facilities is very different. They've been on Main Street for quite a number of years. They've been exiting onto and off of Main Street, which is a pretty busy thoroughfare going through Wallingford. And the way that they manage that traffic is because they really don't respond from the headquarters under an emergency. That's rare. You might see some leaving with lights and sirens, but I would say that's probably a rare occurrence. Where you see the activity coming on and off the site happens as shift change 3 times a day. And that shift change is a slow vehicle activity with returning vehicles and then those vehicles going back out onto patrol. So when the vehicles are deployed throughout their patrol sectors, and if there is emergency requests for police service, those requests come from those patrol vehicles already out on the roads. So that's why it looks like it's a very quiet location, even if there's emergencies happening out on the street or for police service calls. The building itself really portrays itself as a very low activity area, except for those times of morning commutes or shift changes for the staff. And it's the way they're operating currently, and it's the way that's being proposed for Barnes. So it's a very low traffic generator in any of these locations that we're able to locate police facilities.
Okay, so bottom line is, doesn't look to be a problem.
Correct.
Okay. Changing the subject again, and I think this is probably my last question. You described the vehicle storage area on the site, and maybe Mr. Giuliano can point that out again. Is that going to be visible from the road?
The location, go ahead.
I'll take care of it. Because I helped design the site plan and with grades, the short answer is no. We have basically 2 buildings in front of it. We are going to have the cars, and it's a chain link fence area. It's also cut into the hill on the eastern side, so any of the neighbors, they're going to be looking over the top of it. There's about a 14-foot elevation difference between the parking lot and the property line, so they won't see it. And as far as the road, I think Barnes Road is 35 miles an hour, so if you're traveling east, you might catch a quick glimpse, but with all the cars, it would be probably unnoticeable, to be honest. And as I said, you have 2 buildings in front of it, so if you happen to stop on Barnes Road and look, you're not going to see it directly either. And that's one reason for the location. Towards the back of the site, built into the hill, so that it is not a visible commodity up from Barnes Road.
Thank you. And as you mentioned, it's just a chain link fence. It's not.
There are also slats. I misspoke. So it's chain link
Okay.
with slats. So it is screened in accordance with all town requirements.
Okay.
And so that, the contents that are in there are not readily visible by anyone.
Okay. I think I'm set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Other commission members? Mr. Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple comments and 1 or 2 questions, and the minor technical. First off, I support the police department. It's an easy one. And living down the road from the current police department, I can attest to they don't have any obstructions getting through traffic, and so I salute them. I think the last question that Commissioner Cohen had was related to the vehicle impound. Is that the only fencing on the property that I see on the plans? Is that correct?
There was some fencing that I talked about on the public side around the generator and the tower.
Okay.
There was some
Yeah, but
fencing
the
there.
entire, okay, it's good, no
Yes.
need for fencing. Now, forgive me, as you were speaking early on and we had that issue, you said some things, I just want to get clarification as I'm looking at comments from the town planning office and engineering. You said you're representing the owner. Who's the owner?
Town of Wallingford.
Town of Wallingford. And then you said your client. Is your client the committee or the town of Wallingford?
Town of Wallingford.
Okay. And then, I guess through you, Mr. Chairman, to the town planner, the proposed motion indicates his firm's name. If the applicant is the town, everything should be in the name of the town of Wallingford.
Well, it says Town of Wallingford. Allison had indicated that technically, I was to correspond with them, so it was sort of a dual motion.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm looking for clarification, because you made reference to it several times saying, I'm representing the owner, and I'm thinking, well, it's the town. Then you made reference to the committee, so.
Well, I was told to direct my comments to them and not to Allison, so it was, sort of a.
Yeah, if I could, for comparison, when we approved the school building projects, the approval was granted to the town or the Board of Ed, not the building committee or the developer or the architect. So to be consistent, it'd be okay that if we deem approval, it would be granted the name of the town of Wallingford and not the architectural firm.
Yes.
Okay.
No objection.
I didn't. The question was to the planner.
Thank you.
But, all right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
That's it, Mr. Fitzsimmons?
That's it, thank you.
Any other commission members? Yes, Mr. Hine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just getting back to the two entrances, we have the staff entrance and we have the public entrance. One of the questions that I had, and I think you did mention it, but I'd just like some clarification. Exactly what type of signage is going to be at each entrance, if any?
Well, let me talk with the staff entry first. The staff entry point will have visible gates obstructing the lanes for entrance and exit. There will also be signage at that location saying, "Do not enter authorized vehicles only." So that should be identifiable at that location, that it's not an entry location for general public. With the other curb cut to the west, lower on the plan, adjacent to that will be a road sign identifying the property as the police department, Town of Wallingford. Also visible from that curb cut would be the new identifiable entry location with front door canopy entrance. We also have lettering on the building, which is identifying it as the police department visible from that public curb cut. For nighttime, we have downlighting from the canopy to the sidewalk area, and we also have bollard lighting for any walkway entrance to the front entrance. The new entry location also incorporates a planter, so there'd be plantings in that area to add to the landscaping, and flagpoles, 2 flagpoles at that location for state and U.S. flags.
Will there be anything at the public entrance that says public entrance?
No lettering other than what I just identified as the building use.
And then you did, when I saw the training center, actually, my first concern was the lead waste. And I guess my question with respect to that is there any threat or any risk of the lead waste waste escaping from the building? And if so, what steps are being taken to prevent something like that?
The lead's going to be present in two forms. One's going to be lead waste as far as spent ammunition, and that's all contained within the interior of the building. There will be maintenance that'll have to be done routinely that the department would be responsible for cleaning the interior of the range. The only potential for anything exiting, we're exiting the exhaust air. And so we do have lead dust in the air that's also being exhausted. The way that's being filtered is through mechanical filtration. We have filter boxes. Those filter boxes are HEPA filters of the quality and it's multiple stages of filters. So the air passes through the multiple filters and then exchanges back to supply air on the shooter side. Those filter boxes have gauges on them, so the police department can see how clogged they are or the air is not able to get through the filters. There are meters on that. There are filters, gauges on those filter boxes. So again, they have to pay attention to maintenance on those filters. And if the filters get to be at a certain level of needing maintenance, and maintenance hasn't been performed, then the units are no longer able to run. They shut down the units if there's not proper filtration. So there are safeguards in place for those filters to be maintained. And the maintenance service on those filters for a PD range and activity within a PD range is about once a year. So they do have a life expectancy of about 12 months for the type of use that the Wallingford Police Department is anticipating. But if it's less than 12 months, as I said, there's safeguards on the mechanical units that will shut those units down.
And I appreciate that. So those were really my two main subjects or issues. My last is really more of a comment more than anything, and that is, you know, I'm in complete favor of this project, and my view is if we're going to do something, let's do it right. And I think that this does provide the police department with things that they don't have right now that they need. So I'm in favor of this. The only thing I would say is that, you know, I do feel that a lot of the questions here with respect to that training facility are questions that we would ask if this was a private applicant. I think these are easily these are basic questions we would ask a private applicant, and I don't think that we've gotten a lot of answers, or at least details with respect to the use that we would normally require or expect. That being said, I do think this is a great project, and I'm in complete favor of it. And that's really it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hine. Any other commission members? I guess before I just go out to the public, I'd certainly like to echo some of the questions that were raised here, but like other commission members, certainly I support this. As far as from a traffic standpoint in that, I think there were probably a heck of a lot more cars coming out of this facility during the day when it was, I think it was, what, 3M or whatever there, so I'm certainly not concerned about the traffic coming out. And as far as with the, with the range, you folks have to comply, or not you folks, but the police department certainly will have to comply with our noise ordinance. And I suspect if there is an issue with that, there's probably other ways within the interior of the building to provide additional baffles, whatever that may be, if that became an issue. And as far as the use, at least from my perspective, I'm not that concerned with the use. If in fact it's used, obviously it's going to be used for the Wallingford Police Department. If it's going to be used for other police departments, you know, as long as it's, the facility is, you know, is operating in a, you know, in a safe way with respect to noise from an environmental standpoint, as you mentioned with the lead, whether it be the particles or the dust. I certainly have a good comfort level that what you've represented, and given the fact that there is essentially an automatic shut-off if in fact those filters become clogged, I certainly feel very comfortable with that, because I got to believe on ranges there's got to be a lot of very aggressive standards in how they need to be operated. With that being said, while this is not a public hearing, we do offer members of the public the opportunity to come forward and make comments on the application. Any members of the public who'd like to come forward, please come forward, state your name and your comments. Seeing none, it looks like the gentleman there is getting awfully tired holding those plans up. So unless the, you know, the applicant has any final questions or final comments rather, and I see no further comments from commission members, I'd entertain a motion on the application. Again, sir, do you would like to make any final comments? You're certainly not obligated to.
No, thank you.
All right, at this point in time,
Mr. Chairman?
yes, sure, Mr. Cohen.
Can I make a final comment?
Absolutely.
Thanks again. Yeah, you know, I'm in favor of this. However, you know, Mr. Hine just really took the thought right out of my head when he said we didn't get, you know, definitive answers, quite honestly, on some of the questions we asked about, you know, the firing range. And again, you know, it sounds like, you know, the building committee has a lot to do with that. And, you know, the couple of things that I would really like answered definitively is, you know, hours of operation, whether or not other towns are going to be using the facility. And again, the former chief mentioned he couldn't guarantee that, you know, the assault rifles would not be used in the center. And I think that last item is critically important. So I don't know if there's anything, you know, we can do as a commission to, you know, get those answers. I think they're really important questions. I think that, and I'll just say it, you know, our noise ordinance really has been ineffective. I mean, I think the town would make its best efforts if, you know, the noise, you know, exceeded the limits to remedy that situation. But quite honestly, it's the ordinance is not worth the paper it's written on, in my humble opinion. But again, I'm in favor of the application.
I guess I'd ask other commission members, how do they feel about that? Mr. Fitzsimmons.
If I might, I guess, I don't disagree with the comments made about, we would ask, if it was Walmart sitting here, we'd ask questions about hours of operation, you know, how many times they're going to sell fireworks a year and things like that. The bulk of the application is not about the firearms. So one thing, and I know I don't dare ask because I don't think you would know or anyone would know when they're ready to break ground and fund this, but I think as a whole, I think it's fair to say one or two things. We could approve it as is, minus the firearm building pending clarification on some more criteria from the police department, if and when. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this is a shovel-ready project, but I'm in favor of the building itself. I don't disagree with some of the questions regarding getting clarification from the firearms, and I don't think that this gentleman or even the committee could speak to that because it really would be up to the police department. That's just my opinion, I mean, you know.
Did you want me to respond to that? Yeah, that's a good thought. Don't get me wrong, I'm okay with, you know, the range. You know, it's just, you know, when it gets used, as long as, you know, again, the noise, you know, I don't think people want to hear gunshots in anywhere. You know, again, my comment is I can hear the gunfire from Blue Hills Trail at my house, and I'm quite a ways away. And that's, I know there's no, you know, sound protection up there, but I think really, as far as the commission, I think the range is okay. You know, the real sticking point for me is the use of the assault rifles, potential use. You know, because that could, you know, go over the limit of the noise. It may, I don't know, require some modification to the soundproofing. Maybe that's something that needs to be looked at.
We do have the ability through design to control the noise from inside the range exiting the structure. We have that ability whether it's assault rifles or firearms. We have the design capability within the building construction and with the acoustical controls within the structure to control that noise. This, I can say, would not be utilized for public use, and I can see how if it's a public range, there'd be concerns about hours of use and there'd be concerns about volume of activity within the range. This is strictly for municipal use. Right now, it's being utilized, going to be utilized for the Wallingford Police Department. But if it does exceed just the Wallingford Police Department, it would still only be for municipal use. It would never, in my understanding, and I think from the discussions I've had with the building committee and the police department, this is not being proposed as any public use at this range. So public activity would greatly enhance the activity level, but it's not being requested for that use, and it's only being requested for municipal use. I think town of Wallingford would have to be its own best steward to say, we're going to be good neighbors and design something, and if it is a concern, it's now back to the town's ordinances and the town's concern. So we will be able to contain noise within the range through construction, through design. We've done it in other facilities. We've done it with other municipalities. I've designed at least a half a dozen ranges within the state. They're all operational. I think the range that you were referring to is an outdoor location with no acoustical control.
Right.
It's a really different animal,
Yeah, sure.
which is why those are getting shut down and why indoor ranges are becoming more popular and more demanding. The demand is there to get law enforcement proper training.
Right. Thank you. You know, again, I think, you know, the range is a real critical piece of this application. So I'm okay with, you know, keeping it as is. I think, you know, again, it's up to the building committee to just answer a couple of these questions and, you know, again, you know, maybe restrict the use of the rifles. I don't know. I don't have that answer, but that one point really concerns me as far as the application.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. You know, I guess from my perspective, I appreciate Mr. Cohen's concerns, but I don't share them. I think I appreciate them, but I think that as far as being able to deal with the noise, are you familiar with what's the range in Delta?
There's Delta Arsenal.
Yeah, Delta Arsenal. That's an indoor range.
I believe they're using Delta.
Yeah.
Currently, you're utilizing Delta
Yeah.
when they have time.
Delta's actually surrounded by.
Yes, surrounded by residential, and I don't recall any complaints as far as the noise coming out of that. Now, I'm not sure I know, I think the indoor range at Blue Trail only shoots 22s. I don't think you can use any, any other caliber. I could be wrong. I'm not sure with Delta, but I don't believe that there's been any complaints about noise there. So again, I just come back, I'm not concerned about it. And, from my perspective, I'm not sure. Again, other commission members, I'm certainly prepared to, move forward with this as it stands. And if there's no further comments from anyone, I'd entertain a motion on the application.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve application 215-22, site plan approval request for Town of Wallingford to construct 2 new buildings and a vehicle storage area for a new police headquarters at an existing facility previously used as an office on plans entitled Additions and Renovations to 100 Barnes Road, dated July 8, 2022, and revised to August 3, 2022, with the following conditions. 1, comments from Scott Shipman, Junior Engineer, Water and Sewer Division, dated 7/28/2022. 2, comments from Town Planner, dated July 21st, 2022. 3, interoffice memorandum from Aaron O'Hare, Environmental Planner, dated July 29th, 2022. 4, comments from the Fire Marshal's Office, dated July 21st, 2022. And 5, 6 copies of the approved final plans forwarded to the Planning and Zoning Office.
We have a motion on the application. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. Voting beginning with Mr. Cohan.
Yes.
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 And yes, the application's been approved. Thank you, sir. And you can keep those. And again, sir, I apologize for maybe at the start of it, certainly didn't want to be argumentative concerning some of the comments with respect to the plans, but I think, as you can see, what we were looking for was really the exterior of the plans. We weren't looking to look at any of the interior, and I'm sure that would be considered much more sensitive, but I'll leave it at that.
Just thanks for your consideration.
You bet. Have a good evening. It brings us to our next order of business, which is site plan revision for a tank farm for Vic Camille at 524 South Cherry Street. Again, if the applicant would please come forward to begin preparing for the presentation. And Mr. Parent, if you would note all correspondence for the...
Mr. Chairman, we have 21622A, that received July 21st, 2022, comments from the Deputy Fire Marshal. 21622B, received July 25th, 2022. And it was comments from the town engineer. 21622C, comments from Scott Shipman, Junior Engineer. Let's see, 21622D, received August 2nd, 2022. It's a memo from Brian Phillips, PE, Senior Project Engineer at Langen. It's accompanied by a diagram of a tank. And that are all the comments I have.
Thank you, Mr. Parent. Again, if the applicant and or its representatives begin their presentation by introducing themselves and moving on.
Sure, yes. My name is Brian Phillips. I work with Langen Engineering here on behalf of the applicant. The project that we have is at the BYK property shown outlined in blue on this map here. South Cherry Street is to the west, and Dudley Ave to the east of the parcel. The location of the proposed tank farm is outlined in yellow here, so it's between 2 existing buildings, 1 existing tank farm, an existing structure, and the area which currently occupies this space is driveways, impervious areas, a small structure. This proposal is for approximately 4,700 square foot tank farm enclosure. It's essentially outdoor with a covering. They're proposing, or we are proposing, up to 20 tanks which hold raw materials, and it's enclosed over the roof. Additionally, there is a 3-foot-high concrete containment wall which surrounds the proposed enclosure. We did receive a variance last month from the Zoning Board of Appeals for a side yard encroachment for the roof of the overhang, which is cantilevered over. There are no, columns proposed within the side yard, but the roof would extend over. And this roof is to protect the vehicles which come to fill up the tanks, unload the tanks, just to, provide a safe covering for those vehicles from rain. And that's essentially the project. Minor ancillary site improvements. We're essentially just going to put this structure in, repave the vicinity in regards to stormwater. The proposed, or the existing area rather, is impervious, and we will be connecting, all roof drainage underground to existing site catch basins.
That's it?
That's pretty much it.
Good enough. Thank you. Mr. Pagini, any comments on the application?
I believe they answered all my comments. I think the fire marshal just had the tank specifications that they requested. It seems like this is kind of more of a fire marshal's issue than it is a zoning issue at this point. I think they've met all the requests from this office, and they met the variance request as well, so I have no further comments.
Thank you. Commission members, any comments for the application? For the applicant, rather. Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, one quick comment, and this is reference to a letter that you sent back to Mr. Pagini on August 2nd. And basically, per our conversation last week, attaches a specification for the proposed tanks. Our design for our tanks will be nearly identical to the one shown in the attached document. Could you explain what the not identical piece of this is? And, basically my question regarding this, does it, warrant any, type of hazard mitigation or something in the way you contain it? So that's the basis for the question.
I'll ask our.
So I'm Anton Vorsteveld, the project engineer for BYK. So to answer your question, sir, they're nearly identical. Primarily the orientation and nozzles on top of the tank, they may not be in the exact orientation as in the drawing that we submitted. Okay. And just because the way we got to put them in the tank farm, but we haven't done that effort yet, so that's why that comment was made.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Other commission members with comments? Again, any members of the public like to comment on the application, please come forward and name and address. Seeing none, if you'd like to make no further comments, that's fine with me. At this point in time, see, you gentlemen are all here. At this point in time, I'd entertain a motion on the application.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve application 216-22 site plan approval request for BYK USA, Inc. to construct a new tank farm at an existing facility on plans entitled Above Ground Tanks Farm Expansion dated July 8th, 2022. The following comments. 1, comments from the Fire Marshal's Office dated July 21st, 2022. 2, an erosion and sediment control bond in the amount of $4,500. And 3, 6 copies of the approved final plan forwarded to the Planning and Zoning Office.
We have a motion on the application. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons, voting beginning with Mr. Cohen.
Yes.
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 And yes, the application's been approved. Have a good evening, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Brings us to our next item. It's a change of use, ground floor office to commercial, Yalesville Management at 43 Hall Avenue. And again, Mr. Perrin, if you would note all correspondence for the record while the applicant comes forward with its plans.
Okay. Number 310222A, received July 13th, 2022, and it's a memo from the Fire Marshal to Mr. Pagini. Memorandum 310-22B, received July 25th, 2022, and it's from the town engineer. Let's see. Memo received, 31022C, memo received July 27, 2022, and some inter-office memorandum from Scott Shipman, PE Junior Engineer, Water and Sewer. And memorandum 310-22D, received August 5th, 2022, from Aaron O'Hare, the environmental planner.
Thank you, Mr. Perrin. If the applicant would please introduce themselves and begin their presentation.
Good evening. My name is Carl Kieslich, Yalesville Property Management. Regarding 43 Hall Avenue, a conversion of an existing office building to residential apartments and a small commercial portion of it as required by the TC zoning. To my left is our architect, Sam Gardner, who will answer any questions you have regarding to the plans and layout.
Well, I take it you're going to give your presentation now, is that correct?
Sure, I can walk you through the plans.
Gentlemen, if you please just pull the microphone a little bit closer to you, if you would, please.
Okay, how's this? Good?
That's great.
Sam Gardner, architect, 390 Ridgefield Road in Wilton, Connecticut. So this is a conversion of an existing commercial building that is a really up-to-date building. It's got 3 stories above grade and 1 basement level, which is really a half grade down. It's being converted to 12 apartments on all 4 levels. And in discussion with the town planner, we realized that the basement level has to come in under special permit. So we will do that in the future. So we had started to pull a permit because the apartments were as of right, but within the review by the town planner, we saw that the basement should come through to this board under
Sure,
special
could I
permit.
just interrupt you just for a second? Mr. Pagini, as far as this, the basement apartments coming in under a special permit, based on our, maybe I've done my calculation wrong, but based upon my calculation, as far as under our zoning, that the most on this property you could have is 9 apartments. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
Right, and we understand that now, too.
Yeah, so as far as, I just want to correct you, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Pacini. As far as coming in under a special permit for the basement apartments, there would be no point in that because it's not, would not be allowed under our regulations.
We understand that. I guess we've also been informed that the density calculation is being considered to be changed in the near future. So in essence, we're removing the basement from the application at this time. That's really the point I was trying to get to.
Okay, I'm sorry, then I
No, it's
dragged
fine.
it on.
These are all good questions. So I guess we would entertain any questions you might have.
Members of the commission have questions for the applicant.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, through you. So what's the total number of units you're requesting tonight?
12, 3 of which are in the basement. So we are removing those from,
So you're requesting 9 this evening?
correct.
I mean, forgive me, it's just,
No, I understand what you're asking, and so I can confirm to you that we're requesting 9 apartments.
approval for 9 under the site plan.
That is correct, yes.
I was at the site yesterday. I apologize because I don't have the plans because it was sent out to us administratively, so I know your plan's up there. Is there any plan for screening around the property, or a fence or trees or landscaping? Because there was a number of trees that looked like they were removed. I assume they were your trees, and then next door you have industrial use, so I just, is more curiosity as to what's going to happen as far as screening, if any.
Yes, we do have plans for landscaping. Those trees we took down are ready to fall down. So those will all be a row of arborvitaes there.
Oh, okay.
And on the Hall Avenue side, where there's currently no landscaping, we have plans for a couple flowering trees and some small flower beds to address it up.
Okay. And then, if I could, just signage. Signage of the building is going to remain, or are you naming the building? The building itself already has a name, so the apartments are going to have a name and question. And then number 2 is you have sufficient parking for the 9 units, right? Would it be appropriately tagged, labeled, identified?
Yes, the name of the building, we will keep the name. It's a historic building. We want to restore it back to its original grandeur, so it's a nice landmark in the center of town. Not sure where the sign will go yet, but we will keep the name of some kind of sign. Parking, there is adequate parking for even more now, being 9 apartments, for handicap parking, as well as tenant apartments, or tenant parking.
And last question, if I might, market rate apartments, correct?
Yes, these are market rates apartments. They're actually, we do a lot of short-term rentals, which are 3 to 6 months, a lot of traveling nurses, executives, corporate housing.
Nice.
So yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzsimmons. Other commission members? Just a quick comment on your plans. When I was looking at, and I think you want to make an adjustment to them, like A2, when I compare A2 to A5 and 6, you know, when I'm looking at, you know, A2 on your apartment, I think it's apartment 6, which is on the second floor. On that apartment on A2, you don't have a kitchen. On your A5, you do, and then if you go to your second studio apartment, you got 2 kitchens in that one.
No, we
And
caught
so
that.
if you would, yeah, so if
We
you
caught
would,
that.
you know, correct A2.
Yes.
So it matches with A5 and 6. That's really my only comments on it. If there's no other comments from commission members, any members of the public that would like to speak, come forward. Seeing none. At this point in time, I guess, Mr. Pagini, any final comments or any questions, comments you'd like to make on this?
I'm excited about the project, and I appreciate their understanding with the changes in the density, and I wish them all the best.
Just have one last question. With the, I believe it's on the east side of the building, there's, it looks like there's a ramp there for people that may have disabilities. I take it that's, and I didn't really, maybe it is or isn't on the plans, but I take it that's going to remain, so that will, the person who, or individuals that may have the accessible apartment on the first floor, that'll be there, is that correct?
So there is an elevator in this
Yeah,
building.
I saw the elevator.
Which provides the accessibility.
Yep.
My guess on that ramp was it was a secondary means of exiting, which is not required in the building code to be accessible. But if we can keep it, we will.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no plans to remove it.
All right. Just to enhance it or
You know,
repair it.
just the commercial space got
Yeah.
smaller, so you have this small commercial space.
Okay, good enough, thank you. At this point in time, seeing there's no further questions from the commission, nor from the applicant, at this point in time, I'd entertain a motion on the application.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve application 310-22, change of use request for Yalesville Management LLC to convert an office building to a residential/commercial mixed use with 9 residential units on plans entitled Hall Ave Apartments dated June 28th, 2022, with the following comments. 1, comments from Scott Shipman, Junior Engineer, Water and Sewer Division, dated July 27th, 2022. 2, comments from the Fire Marshal's Office, dated July 12th, 2022. Number 3, that all future use within the building are fully compliant with Section 4.26 of the Town of Wallingford zoning regulations. 4, 6 copies of the approved final plans forwarded to the Planning and Zoning Office. And 5, landscaping approved by Town Planner.
If I could just make a comment, when we talk of the 9 units, if we could indicate that the below-ground units would be the ones that would be eliminated?
Yes, amend my motion
Thank
to
you.
include.
Thank you. At this point in time, we have a motion on the application. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons, voting beginning with Mr. Cohan.
Yes.
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 And yes, the application's been approved. Gentlemen, have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
It brings us to our next item on the agenda, which is site plan establishment of emergency access, Dina Talley, 8-10 Wallace Avenue.
Mr. Chairman, I have the following items of correspondence. 21722A, a memo from Allison Kapuczynski, professional engineer, received July 29th, 2022, I'm sorry. A map received August 3rd, 2022. This is Exhibit 21722B. And there is also an additional map, site plan of Dina Talley Realty LLC, received August 4th, 2022, but it doesn't have a reference number on it.
Thank you, Mr. Parent. And I see Mr. Dina Talley's here, but he doesn't have his full team. If the applicant would please introduce himself and begin his presentation.
Good evening. My name is Vincenzo Di Natale. I'm the applicant here for this site plan application, and I'm without my team members tonight. One of them had a prior obligation on a Zoom, and the other one is on a safari in South Africa. So I have a junior team member here in the audience. Just to recap where we are, as you may recall, we were here at a previous meeting with the adjacent parcel shown on the board before you, and the green building was the subject of the application. And tonight, we're here to clarify the emergency access we intend to use to service that property. The emergency, just as a reference, the emergency access is noted on that map in red, with the red mark. You have several maps before you, and not to add more, but just for clarification, I have a color drawing which shows existing and proposed, if it's helpful at all in clarifying what we intend to do here tonight, and I can distribute those.
Sure, I think that would be. Probably matches up with this, no?
You have several maps before you. I think what I just handed out, just as a clarification of what we intend to do for the application. There's an existing sketch which shows 2 parking stalls, and this again is for an application that was approved, actually, I noted July, but this was approved years ago, a year or two ago, with the site plan application for 810 Wallace. It shows 2 parking stalls where vehicles would just drive in, reverse back out onto Wallace, and exit on their way. What we're proposing on the sheet that's highlighted in green is to rotate those 2 spaces to facilitate the emergency access. And again, so an emergency vehicle would be able to access the rear parcel because we'd be relocating the vehicles. And when we had this discussion with the staff, the zoning officer, zoning as well as engineering, the engineer was focusing on one of the parking stalls and thought there'd be limited mobility. And the second parking stall is hatched in red. And she said, well, you know, we talk about quantity versus quality, yeah, there are 2 spaces there, but the second one would have a difficult time maneuvering. So she thought it'd be better if it was 1 space, because 1 space would have true maneuverability in and out of the parking stall, where the second would be too constricted. It kind of takes me back to where this site was years ago. Years ago, it was sort of a mystery what parking stalls were there. The road was narrow. The entrance to Wallace Ave had an old building which was taken down probably 10 years ago, maybe even sooner than that. And this property was on this narrow road and had an area for parking. We believe the area for parking was consistent with everything else in town. They were pre-existing, non-conforming spaces. So what we're proposing to you tonight is to take what existed years ago and make it more one conforming space with a fire access. And that's what we have proposed tonight.
Thank you. Commission members with questions? Just have just one question, just for Mr. Pagini.
Yep.
You know, when we approved it, it was, you know, it's 2 units, 2 parking spaces. Now it's 2 units, 1 parking space. How does that impact the parking requirement?
I think it was pre-existing, I believe, so I think it falls under the pre-existing uses kind of condition under that other application, so I don't think it takes away from the actual required parking on that site, because I don't think there was enough to begin with, so I don't believe it impacts it at all, from what I can tell from the previous application. Certainly look into it more, but I believe that's...
And I think that's, you know, I recall we had these conversations in the office, and the 810 Wallace application involved pre-existing structures. There was no building square footage added, so to speak, like we were last month when we were dealing with 350 Center Street. So we were dealing with pre-existing conditions. I think what we were, if we had Google Maps 20 years ago to see what was there, would be helpful. Because when they made improvements to Wallace Avenue, the town put the bituminous curbing along Wallace Ave, just like they're starting to do now in the municipal lot. And they created a wide driveway apron. So we went from not sure to a big driveway apron to 2 spaces when it was approved 810 Wallace down to 1. I think it's why I have comfort with this is because we have, you know, ultimately what we're creating. We're creating an access point with pedestrian-friendly access to the rear of the parcel, and we eliminate a parking space which doesn't conform. Even what was approved with 810 Wallace, which is the blue diagram, there were 2 parking stalls that backed onto Wallace Avenue, which isn't that desirable, right? It's a pedestrian-friendly street, so we had what was existed and we worked with it. Now we went from 2 that backed into Wallace to 1 parking stall that is maneuvering on-site before it exits.
Sure, no, I understand all of that. But again, the building that was there before, again, what was that? Was that a residential building? What was that building?
Yes, it was actually.
Was it one family, was it a one unit?
It was actually 3 units, and we went from 3 units, and when it was rebuilt, to 2 units.
Okay. And the parking on that, I guess that's kind of up in the air as far as how many spaces there were.
Yeah, and that's what it was. It was completely up in the air because when the town made improvements to Wallace Avenue, they made a huge curb cut. So we don't know what was there before. There was no curbing. They just dropped a curbing that would have to fit 2 parking stalls. There wasn't even a driveway there. But in an effort to sort of better planning, the fence was taken down. It started to be used as a driveway.
Okay. So again, I guess I would just go back to Mr. Pagini. Based on this, you feel comfortable, based on our regulations, by reducing this from 2 parking spaces to 1 parking space, for this, that it would conform to our regulations. Is that correct?
Yes, because I believe the 2 parking spaces were not conforming to begin with, so this makes 1
No,
conforming
but
space.
I don't mean conforming as far as the size. I mean as far as the requirement for the number of spaces. Not as far as how the parking spaces are configured, but just the fact that instead of 2 parking spaces, that the 1 parking space for this would conform to our regulations.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other commission members? So at this point in time, I would entertain a motion on the application.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve application 217-22, site plan revision request to remove a parking space for emergency access onto an adjacent property as shown on plans entitled Site Plan Land of Di Natale Realty, LLC, 382, 384 Center Street, 810 Wallace Ave, dated August 4th, 2022, with the following comments. 1, comments from Allison Kapuscinski, Town Engineer, dated July 29th, 2022, and 2, 6 copies of the approved final plan forward to the Planning and Zoning Office.
Good, we have a motion on the application. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons, voting beginning with Mr. Cohan.
Yes.
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 And yes, the application has been approved. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Pagini, our next item is I guess, a sale of a portion of 43 Wallace Avenue. And again, Mr. Parent, if you'd note all correspondence for the record, please.
On that one, sale portion of 43, there's no, it's just 5.
Yeah, 5.
I'm sorry, item 5. Oh, I see. Oh, it's a memo, this is a memo received August 1st, 2022, from the Wallingford Law Department to Kevin Pagini, planner. And it also is as an attachment showing land to be conveyed to Wallace Realty Incorporated from the town of Wallingford.
And then the final.
And we have, and then we also have Exhibit 5A, and it's letter from, received August 3rd, 2022, and it's a letter from William W. Dixon, Mayor, to Wallingford Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Parent. And again, Mr. Pacini, I Guess if you just take us through this very quickly.
Yes, the town of Wallingford is interested in the sale. It's a portion of 43 Wallace Avenue. It's approximately 2,605 square feet in size. Currently would not be a conforming building lot, so therefore the town is interested in selling it to the adjacent, I believe it's Wallace, let me see, Wallace. Where did it say that? Oh yeah, Wallace Realty Incorporated, and it lies between 25 Wallace Avenue and 65 North Main Street. And part of the church, the Wallace Realty will transfer a portion of the property to the church as the church's staircase and oil tank encroach onto the town property. And it would not by itself, like I said, be a legal building lot, and the agreement requires the buyer to merge this property into 25 Wallace Ave, and the deed will state that.
Thank you. Any commission members with questions on the proposed sale? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion from the commission on this.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we recommend the sale of a...
No, approve. No, I'm fine. Yes, you're right.
Mr. Chairman, I make a recommendation, I'm usually not right, so recommendation for sale of portion of 43 Wallace Ave, 2605 square feet, as shown on map dated July 16, 2022, to the town of Wallingford Town Council for final approval.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons, voting beginning with Mr. Cohan.
Yes.
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 And yes. And Mr. Pagini, if you take us through the rest of the agenda.
Okay, so I included in your packets what sort of a continuation of the discussion from our town center regulation density discussion. And hopefully we've corrected all of the confusion, and if not, we'll go back to the drawing board. But the maps I have laid out are for the new incentive housing zone subdistricts with a high-density downtown core encompassing roughly 7.2 acres. That's shown in blue on the incentive housing zone subdistricts map, and that would be 50 units per acre, and the rest of the districts would stay the same from a density standpoint. If this isn't correct, please let me know now. And then for market rate housing, we were discussing 40 market rate units per acre, and it's the same area. I believe I combined option 1 and 2 from the previous meeting, combined those into those 2 areas, and that would be a subdistrict of the town center zone, so that would be a subdistrict of section 4.26. I'm considering putting the maps into the zoning regulations as Appendix A and Appendix B, so people actually know the places that they can develop and the parcels that encompass those developments. Because right now there are no visuals representing the sub-districts that's easily accessible to the public, so I wanted to make that a bit more accessible. And then the town center zone amendment would create the high-density sub-district as defined in Appendix A. The sub-district would consist of 20 parcels, and that's 7.2 acres in size. And also, as part of that text amendment, as we discussed, units shall not be located on any first floor and cannot be ground level street facing, but residential amenities shall be allowed on the first floor, such as lobbies, common areas, or recreational amenities accessory to the residential building. You could let me know if there's any wording that you would want to see as different as part of that. And the incentive housing zone, I sort of changed. It is lengthy, so I may have missed a couple of mentions here and there regarding the residential amenities or the retail requirements, so I'm still kind of going through that and just making sure everything is in there. But it would be the same concept. It would allow for promote a mix of uses with retail and residential amenities. I added that into there. And then I added under the description of the sub-districts, and number 2, a high-density downtown core sub-district. And this area of the incentive housing zone would include 20 parcels with 20 existing buildings. Like I said, that's 7.2 acres in size. And all standards and regulations of the downtown core sub-district as outlined in 4.23D1 would apply to that sub-district as well. And then I just changed the numbering accordingly throughout the text amendment. Like I said, I'm still kind of going through seeing if I missed anything in the incentive housing zone also, but I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of the draft of the proposal. And the permitted uses and dimensional requirements under the incentive housing zone, the following uses are permitted, are subject to site plan approval. And I added under 1A2 of that section, that would be amenities such as lobby areas, common areas, or recreation areas accessory to the residential use shall be allowed on the first floor. And then added the higher density downtown core. That's mixed use development at a maximum density of 50 dwelling units per acre. Fractional numbers shall be rounded down, and provided that pretty much the same language, and with the amenities language added into that. I mean, the section is all new, but it's generally the same wording as the other districts would be. And then on North Cherry Street, I also added the residential amenities text into the incentive housing zone. So that's essentially what I got from our prior discussions. And you could let me know if I missed anything. This would just be a draft as of right now, but I'm hoping to submit it as a formal text amendment, hopefully for September. The incentive housing zone does have to go to the state as well for any changes to that. So I would have to also submit it to I believe it's Commissioner of Housing with the state. So if that is hopefully what we agreed upon, I discussed with Chairman Seichter to try to clear up any confusion, but if not, then we will go back to the drawing board and I will certainly consider further comments.
Commission members with comments on this? Mr. Hine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really just have one question, and I see that we're just kind of following what we had previously, but we actually set out how many parcels and how many buildings are in each of these sub-districts.
Yes, I did mention that.
Yeah.
Also.
And I just sort of wonder, and I see, obviously we had that in there before as well. I just wonder, whether we need to describe it that way, because what if you have parcels that are eventually merged, or you
Right.
have parcels or buildings that are demolished and combined, or then we're going to be going back on a regular basis trying to update, and I wonder if there's a better way to just lay it out, maybe a reference to a map or something like that.
Right, I mean, yeah, if you're all agreeable to removing some of that language, I would certainly, it would make my life a lot easier because it was difficult to try to figure out all the different buildings and, how many I removed from the zone and counting and everything else, so I think it's a, strong suggestion. I don't know if there was a reason as to why it was done that way in the first place, but certainly if it needs to stay, it can stay. And
Yeah, I would certainly, I think that's a good observation by Mr. Hine, as far as calling out the parcels and the buildings and all of that. Just simply, we have a map to reference, reference the map.
right. And the incentive housing zone map will be Appendix B.
Yeah.
I haven't put that in there yet, but
I think that's a good suggestion to eliminate that. Other commission members?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzsimmons, and then we'll go to Mr. Parent.
I have two comments. First off, excellent work. On the last page of commentary, last page of the regs, right above number 3, North Cherry Street, it says,
yes.
2B, it just says public transportation. And you have the same thing under E, and I'm just, like, there's nothing else identifying it.
Hold on. Where was that again?
It carried forward, so if you could look at E, permitted uses and dimensional requirements,
Yes.
under 1A, downtown core, and then go to B. It just says the words public transportation.
Yeah, that was in the original text, so I don't know what that is for, but it was in all of these, so
Public transportation.
I'm not sure. I think it was just a,
No, I know, but it doesn't say it. Like, it says the words, like, it just said, the following uses are permitted. Oh, so leave it like that?
I believe I have
Like
it.
bus shelter, is that what you're referring to?
I think it is. I couldn't, I had a hard
No,
time.
I think I was referring more if you're going to put in a public transportation facility.
Facility.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, that's how I would take this rather than a bus.
at a bus shelter.
Yeah, than a bus shelter.
Yeah, because I have the original.
I mean, when I
right
read
here.
it, I think I was, when I read it, I had the same, I think the same general question that you had, and I said, well, no, I think that this is what it means. But
Okay.
it's certainly something worthy to be discussed, is where,
It just says a
as
use.
some
Yeah.
of us are scratching our heads, perhaps. we
Yeah,
should-
it just needs some clarification around it, and I don't know how far back it goes, because it just,
I think maybe it's would be public transportation, like you said, like a bus hub as part of maybe the development, to promote the transit-oriented development aspect, I'm guessing.
so it either needs to be clarified or removed, is what I'm thinking, right? Clarified is, because you're talking about a permitted use,
Correct.
so public transportation, shelter, facility,
I'm not sure-
vestibule.
Yeah, I think as far as, a public transport, if we're talking about shelter, now you're talking about a shelter where people can,
Good old-fashioned bus stop.
a bus stop, yeah, to me,
That's
I was-
that's
I-
just a sign,
yeah, that could be,
a shelter. I read it almost as a building.
yeah.
Like, I don't know if we want buses all parked on the parcel and,
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think with that, I think that.
then I would
there
propose to
seems-
strike it.
Yes,
I would
I think that's probably the easiest way to do it.
I would say strike it in
I would
those two
strike it-
areas.
Strike it in both.
Both
E1, B, and
Yeah, I
Two-
think that would,
2B.
I think that would be appropriate.
And then the other question is, and this is worse, the higher density downtown core. It needs a better name. And I say that because I realize as I look at the map, it all makes sense, downtown core, North Cherry Street, Meadow Street, and then it just says high density downtown core. And I know we kind of talked about it once at the workshop, it needs some more simplicity without screaming high density.
Well,
And even HD would work versus the words high
the
density.
density.
Just observation.
I think I originally had it as something else, but then I didn't want to confuse everybody, so I just left it as high density. downtown.
In my notes from the workshop, I was referring to it as the gazebo zone. Because it's right around, everything's around the gazebo,
I
but
think I also pitched
but
out
taking
maybe
the- they're
historic
taking the
railroad
gazebo apart.
sub-district or something, but
I mean,
Well,
it's minor in nature. I understand.
I understand. I guess that would, Mr. Pagini, that,
no, that's,
I think would be a charge for you to come up with a more creative name for it.
would historic railroad sub-district ring any, no? Okay. That was just.
Keep
something
working
else.
on it. We don't, yeah, you have a month. So just keep working on it. Is that Mr. Parent?
Okay, one word. Under 3B, North Cherry Street Subdistrict, you have create an environment that is conducive to walling. I think you meant walking.
Well, I don't know, that's all existing language, so anything in the black text is all existing.
Yeah, it's a typo.
It's a
I
typo.
think
Yeah, it
let's,
could be.
let's,
Yeah.
let's just figure out what it's supposed to say.
I think it's walking.
It is walking.
Just very quickly, I know Commissioner Fitzsimmons said E1 and 2, it's also in 3. I didn't know if you noticed that too.
Yes, the public transportation, I believe it's in all
Yeah,
three
I
of
didn't
those.
see that third one.
Yep, it's in 1, 2.
Oh, North Cherry Street.
Oh, yeah.
Weird.
Oh, that one's hiding.
Yeah, that one.
Anyone else? Yeah, I just have one comment, Mr. Pagini. I just want to make certain on the town, our town center.
Yes,
In our town center right now for market rate housing, it's 30 units.
yes, on
What we
lots
have,
over
yeah, what we have.
25,000.
And then when we come up our new creative name, but we have it right now for 30. I just want to make certain that in the town center, that we don't have, that doesn't, well, how am I going to say this? We have our incentive housing zone, and we're looking to, in a certain portion of that incentive housing zone, we're looking to increase the density to the 50 units. But I want to make certain that there's not other areas in the incentive housing zone that are included in our town center where we have a situation where it's 30 units market rate, 26 units affordable housing, if you kind of understand what I'm driving at. You know, because we had prior, right now, you know, we have market rate is one thing at 30, incentive housing is 26. So I just want to make certain that, you know, we're increasing the density in that new area we're creating, but that we're not going to have a portion of the incentive housing zone that's going to have the density lower than what it could be in those same properties for market rate housing. Hopefully I'm making myself clear.
Yeah,
So
no,
if you could just take a look, I don't expect an answer, you know, this evening.
No, it's 100%, it's the same area, so the area encapsulates the exact same parcels, so town center's 40 and incentive housing zone's 50, so you couldn't develop anything more than that for market rate in that area.
So
because
there's no areas that are in our town center zone that would have a higher density, if we went forward with this, that would have a higher density for market rate than for affordable housing.
Oh, wait, no, there is in the downtown core, I believe, and Meadow Street, I think is an overlapping.
Yeah, I guess for me in Meadow Street, that's
Well, I'll have to check, but
that's something I'm not concerned with, at least I'm not, other commission members may be, I think what's for Meadow Street is fine, but
But the remaining downtown core, I believe, would
Yeah.
still be below the market rate. So the yellow portion there, I don't know if you want to up the density in that area, potentially.
yeah, so I guess in the yellow portion, under our town center regulations, under the town center regulations,
Yep, it would be,
what would that,
if it was an actual lot over 25,000 square feet, it would allow 30, and 26 in lots under 25,000 square feet. And for incentive housing, it would only allow a maximum of 26.
Yeah, see, so then that, there's a disconnect there. So I think we need to look at that.
And go a
So-
little bit higher. But then-
Yeah, well, I think we have to have it, so if I choose to do market rate, I can get
Yep.
30. If I choose to do incentive housing, oops, I can only do 26. So much like we've looked at, providing a quote bonus, if you would, if you do, incentive housing, I think for those areas that fall into that category, we want to look at the same thing. So we just don't have that inconsistency where,
So would we be comfortable with like 35 for the remaining portion, something like that?
what do we think about that, folks?
There's got to be an
Yeah.
incentive.
Yeah, exactly. There needs to be an incentive.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that works. Anyone else? All right, Mr. Pagini. You can,
Just give me 1 second to amend this. So I don't.
well, again, you can, yeah, but you can, that's nothing that you need to do immediately, because I think you may have to take a little bit more time, just as you know the direction that we like to go with it. You can, work on that, and then work on coming up with a new name.
That's probably going to be the most difficult part.
The Metropolitan District.
Product development.
Any suggestions I will gladly take for that.
Well, I'm sure, I tell you, commission members, over the next couple of weeks, should you come up with some names?
Send it a monkey, survey monkey.
Yeah, there you go. Send that monkey out.
Good.
All right, Mr. Pagini, if you would please just continue with our agenda.
Administrative approvals, there was 4 Laser Lane. Any questions on that project? That was held up in wetlands for quite a while and went out to the site. And from a zoning standpoint, I didn't see any major issues. Anything on that? And then the fee schedule, just a small revision to that. The change of use, just for some reason it was left off of the changing of the new one. If done administratively, it's still $150, and if it gets put on the agenda, it goes up to $250. And that's the only change on that. I think you may have to just vote on that, just to.
Sure, do we have a motion to accept the proposed change?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the fee schedule, change of use for if done administratively versus if on an agenda for change of use. When would we make it effective?
Tomorrow, I guess.
Do we have to do 30 days?
I don't believe so, not for this, no. It does not have to go to the ordinance committee, so.
To be made effective Tuesday, August 9th.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Moving on.
And then for ZBA, there is no meeting in August, so there will be a September meeting. Also, the applicant for Choate may also give a memo to the Planning and Zoning Commission for next month, just to explain and give a visual representation of that project, just so you don't have any further questions for ZBA in regards to that.
I just have a question. Was that Choate project before the ZBA in July or no?
It is not. They pulled it off for that meeting, and I believe it's supposed to be on the September meeting, from what I'm being told. Because there is no August meeting, I don't think they formally resubmitted it yet. Let's see. Any other questions on any any of that. Um, And then the violations, we did make some significant progress with Iron Horse. We were able to send out a couple of letters that were pretty demanding, so we were able to actually get that site pretty much fully cleaned up as of 5 days ago. Hopefully, nothing came out again in the last couple of days. We've been trying to be pretty active in going out there and looking. I believe some of their fencing is still up, but I'm not sure if the fencing is technically a zoning violation at that point, so I'm still kind of looking into that, and I may just ask them to remove it as part of the violation. The Southern Connecticut Pallet Company has not responded to our cease and desist that was sent out. They said they were supposed to get us a bit of a plan for how they're going to clean that up, but we're going to be hopefully looking to reach out again and try to get something going there again. Again, most of it's just the same recurring violations. A couple of roosters, again, and some of the other complaints regarding diesel mechanic operation in residential neighborhoods. That we're hopefully, that's a 45 New Place Street in your packets. That hopefully has been resolved. The zoning enforcement officer went out and did a final inspection on that, so hopefully that gets closed in the coming days. I think that's it. We did reach out regarding some of the dumpster violations as well, so we're trying to wait to hear back from that. And any other questions on enforcement, or?
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Parent.
422 South Elm Street. Now, I'm concerned they've got that basement apartment in there, and from my personal knowledge, I know that there's a lot of people who live in that one house.
Yes. They were supposed to come in for an accessory apartment site plan review. They have not yet, so the enforcement action has been stepping up increasingly. He did come in and meet with us, but we haven't received any formal application as of yet for the accessory apartment.
Okay, but, no, I mean, just looking, I guess, from my own knowledge of that particular dwelling unit, unless there's a outward, a door or something like that, that may be a real safety hazard.
Absolutely. Yeah, I believe the building department brought it to our attention, so we met with the homeowner, and he is well aware that he needs to either rectify it, remove it, or either come before us or remove it. That's essentially his two options. So we've been in contact, and hopefully it gets resolved soon.
Anyone else? I guess I just have one comment. At the last meeting, Mr. Cohen, mentioned, the political signs, and there was several of them that don't appear to be on individuals' property.
Yep.
And those signs are still there. I mean, obviously, the primaries are over or tomorrow, so to some degree it's a moot point. But as we're going to start getting into the election cycle and we're going to start getting signs out, I think it'd be beneficial for somehow with the the planning department making people aware as far as political signs, where they can or can't be, and that the freedom of speech, you can put them on your property, but as far as on town property, that can't be. So I think that would be somewhat important in the next, whenever it is, next couple of weeks, next month, next something, because I suspect most people think, or probably are planning, come September 1st, 2nd, whenever it may be, that seems to be the time when people start putting them out. So we don't have a situation where, we have what we have right now.
So according to law department, I spoke to Janice directly about this. She said that we kind of have no ability to regulate political signs or enforce political signs.
Even if they're on town property?
Correct. That's the way it was presented to me. I can certainly get a memo if necessary. But
I would, yeah, I'll give Jan, well, if that's what she said, I'd just like to clarify that with her, because just seems a little inconsistent. If you can put a political sign on town property, then why can't I put any other sign on town property as a matter of free speech? Okay, I'll follow that up with her.
I tried to stay away from the sign.
No,
Sometimes it
no,
gets-
I understand, but I think Mr. Cohen raised a valid
Absolutely.
point.
So maybe I could have her write, the commission memo, just stating what can and can't be done, and then we'll. go
Yeah,
from there.
something just so the general public's aware of it. So if you're not allowed to do that, we're not running into a situation where we have some people that will comply and then other people that won't. There's only so much you can do with that, but as long as people become more aware of it.
Right.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I should have brought this up when we talked about the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. And hopefully this is appropriate. If it's not, just let me know. But I attended, and I think JP attended the state's training on housing fairness.
Yes.
And I thought it was very good. There was a lot of people on the meeting. I don't know if other towns were invited to this, or it was, Wallingford and then just state folks. But, I listened to the whole presentation, and again, it was pretty good. But I was waiting for the aha moment where, for me, it never got there as far as explaining why our Zoning Board of Appeals had to take this training. And I was just wondering, through you, Mr. Chairman, if you could comment on that, Kevin. Did I miss something? Did you feel that way? Did, the ZBA folks in attendance?
I could sort of comment on it. I know as part of the litigation for the settlement for the town, they were required to attend this training. So it was the litigation with the case.
Right, but did it explain the judgment against them? Did they get the message? Because again, for me, I was waiting for, okay, here's what Wallingford did, and it never came.
I agree, because, the judgment is public knowledge.
Correct.
The same thing, there was no, they didn't really kind of mesh it together or correlate it. It was,
Yeah.
I think they did a good job, but it was very general and high level.
I don't think they focused specifically on what they did. I don't know why that is. I'm not.
I just would have thought maybe 5 or 10 minutes of it, of saying, okay, here's, the judgment, here's why we're here. It didn't happen in the beginning, and it didn't happen in the end.
Well, I won't take.
You gotta make
words out of
sure
your
you had
mouth,
the
but
secret word.
There also wasn't technically a judgment in one way or the other. It was just a settlement, so that was part of the settlement.
Yeah, but
I don't want to get into the.
My thing was, it's public information, so it's
Yep.
not as if this was, a settlement that
Right.
couldn't be disclosed. It was pretty straightforward, so.
I just know as part of the settlement, they were
Yeah.
required to take the training, but again, it didn't have any specifics as to why, or, didn't understand that either, but that was, I don't get a lot of this, the details explained to me most of the time, so.
I agree with you, JP. They cited other cases where there were issues. But again, yeah, it didn't come through for me. That's it.
I agree.
Good.
Yeah.
Any other business? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adjourn the Wallingford Planning and Zoning Commission meeting Monday, August 8th, 2022.
Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We're adjourned. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I was told.